now, it's McLaren and Ricciardo that win the Italian Grand Prix.
And for anyone who thought I left, I never left.
Oh, shut up, Ricciardo. Stop it. You're lying. You're literally more washed than the waves of the Atlantic, and I don't know what's disappointing. Your career fall off, or the fact that you watching, you're not subscribed. So hit that subscribe button. Anyways, that shameless plug over. Kinda feel bad. Well, the hype around Daniel Ricciardo really did start back in 2023, when Nick de Vries's car was looking more like a mashed potato rather than an actual Formula 1 car with 4 wheels. To say that Nick de Vries was a good driver, I'd be lying. I mean, he was matching the skill level of Latifi, Mazepin, Sargent. He was genuinely shocking. For 27 years old, Formula E champion, Formula 2 champion, getting points in Monza at his first ever Formula 1 race, the hype around him was there. But he really didn't deliver in Formula 1, well, at all. He was crashing out here, there, pretty much everywhere, and well, comparing him to Yuki Tsunoda, who for like the last however many years was being absolutely dominated by Pierre Gasly, who literally got a win in the same car, podiums, and what was Yuki Tsunoda doing? Chilling back in P13 and crashing out nearly every single race back in 2021. Well, he was just not good at all. So comparing Nick de Vries to Yuki Tsunoda was either some higher echelons of human being who can perform magic in that AlphaTauri, or Yuki Tsunoda is just your average ass driver, and then you got Nick de Vries, who is like plumber last every single race, and his skill level is incomparable, one of the two, to anything that we've seen in Formula 1, well, ever since Mazepin left. Well, all of that's brewing on one side of the garage of the whole RB Red Bull family. On the other side of the garage, well, there's Max Verstappen. Carrying on his rampage from 2021 and 2022, 2023 really is no different, and well, neither is 2024. Unless his car blows up, then Carlos Sainz, well, your redemption arc has started because Ferrari have screwed you over, haven't they? Well, anyways, where was Verstappen's dominance? Yeah, we can put that to the side because nothing's ever gonna go wrong with Verstappen unless his car blows up or the mechanic forgets to put on the correct tires. We're talking about Perez. He had a pretty good, decent start to the season, and he was kind of faking a championship battle between Verstappen, but everyone was delusional to think that another Hamilton-Rosberg situation would brew up from that, because being realistic, Rosberg is a great driver, and Sergio Perez, he's a mediocre to good driver. He's not great. He's nothing above good or mediocre, no shot. He's one of those drivers, just like Pierre Gasly, Esteban Ocon, who have won races in the past, but they're not races on merit. Some crazy shit has to go down in that race for them to actually win the race. I mean, Sergio Perez, turn 1, it was literally a bowling alley. Verstappen and Leclerc both knocked each other out the race, and yeah, well, other shenanigans happened, and he got a win, and that pretty much saved his career. And, I mean, he's alright. I mean, he's just alright. But for me to even say that he was alright back at the, well, nearer the start of 2023, I'd have to be on crack cocaine, because he was the worst driver. He was matching Lance Stroll for being that bad. And well, with Nick de Vries driving like an absolute brain-dead noob, and you got Sergio Perez as well, who is, well, very, 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 very far off Max Verstappen, crashing out most races, not even, it was a struggle for him to score a podium in the fastest car of all time, whilst Max Verstappen is winning every single race.
Max Verstappen, Max Verstappen, Max Verstappen, eat, sleep, win, repeat.
Sorry, that's the last time you're gonna hear the anthem. It's just, you wake up and it's just in everyone's brain. I can't help it, it's just everywhere. Around the time where those two shitters can't help themselves from being, well, dreadful at the sport, Daniel Ricciardo was just signed to Red Bull as the third driver. And the side eyes that Daniel Ricciardo was giving Sergio Perez and Nick de Vries were some that he could be imprisoned for, because they were dangerous. They're pretty much the same looks that these days Lawson is giving to Daniel Ricciardo. And, well, we all know, well, it's inevitable, isn't it? Daniel Ricciardo is really trying his best in the backgrounds to either somehow meddle with Sergio Perez's car for him to crash out in another race, or maybe hinder Max Verstappen slightly, maybe poison them. That doesn't work. But what does work is pretty much a red carpet being laid out in front of him, because Nick de Vries is awful, Sergio Perez is doing awful, and guess what happens? Ta-da! Nick de Vries gets booted out the sport, and well, Daniel Ricciardo is back in Formula 1. Wow. Scores a P7 finish in Mexico, which in that AlphaTauri back then was pretty good, very good, and Sergio Perez was kind of quaking in his boots. Because pretty much everyone else thought that, well, that Red Bull seat is Daniel Ricciardo's name written all over it. I mean, it is Daniel Ricciardo's seat and he will have it maybe next year, maybe mid-season next year, but it will be his soon enough. Well, that's what we all thought. And that is where 2024 comes into play, which is this year. And yeah.
Daniel Ricciardo running in 16th place. And round he goes.
I mean, in today's day and age, this is what we know Daniel Ricciardo for. A slow driver who is pretty much very much worse than his very much worse teammate. Because let's be real, at the end of the day, Yuki Tsunoda, he isn't going to challenge for podiums, mega points, or even the championship anytime soon in his career, or even ever, because he's kind of that lonely driver who is good, but he's just like, alright, like Kevin Magnussen or Nico Hülkenberg. When are they ever going to put up some serious numbers except for just straggling some back market teams, filling in the seats, getting some alright points when they can? That's literally Yuki Tsunoda described in a couple words. And the fact that Daniel Ricciardo is losing, no, not even losing, absolutely being dominated, pummeled into the ground by Yuki Tsunoda, now that is, well, embarrassing, and if I was him, I wouldn't show my face ever again. Maybe wear a face mask, maybe just not turn up to the track, because as it stands, you're just gonna keep on being beat by Yuki every single, and it's not even just the races. He's worse in quali, worse in overtake, literally everything you can name. There's so many like dynamics to follow, and he's worse in every single one. He used to be known as the greatest overtaker in Formula 1, and this year I haven't seen him overtake anyone. Maybe that's because he's at the back of the, and way at the back of the grid, and he just is that bad. Or he just hasn't overtaken anyone because he's also that bad. Now, I might have hyped up Daniel Ricciardo too much in my mind, but going into this season, I thought Daniel Ricciardo was easily going to score a podium in the first 5 races. Why? Because the RB was going to apparently use like the RB19, which was kind of a monster of a vehicle, the greatest Formula 1 car of all time. So maybe RB in another dimension would have been a great team. But reality strikes. Not only is the RB car this year, I don't know what it's called, RB9, it's not, whatever it's called, not only is it a boat and it's fighting the Alpines most of the time, which they're resembling more of a tractor, and therefore that makes, well, the RB car a snail, maybe? It's not the fact that Daniel Ricciardo hasn't scored any podiums, because, well, the car just isn't there, but it's the fact that he's scored 0 points. 0.0. Something that he was literally getting on a daily basis back in the Red Bull days, back in the day. Also in the Renault days, McLaren also scrambling for points here and there. But now, 0 points while Yuki Tsunoda is, well, he has 7. Mathematically, Yuki Tsunoda has an infinite time and more points than you, which you being you, Daniel Ricciardo, is kind of poor. You see, the worst part about all of this is last year he was good. I don't know what's happened, whether his confidence has just plummeted into the ground, the car has changed somehow and he yet again can't adapt to it. Because last year, Christian Horner made a crazy statement saying they've ironed out all of Daniel Ricciardo's flaws and faults that he picked up along the way in Renault and McLaren, and he was meant to be the next Red Bull driver. He was meant to turn up and batter Yuki. He was meant to be like genuinely a I don't know whether over the winter break he snorted too much cocaine, got a bit too high, and those mistakes kind of started to creep in more, or whether he just genuinely lost it, doesn't feel comfortable in the car, and he's just getting a nice old battering from Yuki Tsunoda. Let me not even mention that he had aspirations of, well, going into the Red Bull, because that's obviously what he wants to do. He doesn't want to stay in a straggling team at the back for, well, his entire rest of his racing career in Formula 1 is that... What am I saying?
What?
Well, he obviously wants to go to a better car to fight for wins and championships rather than stay in a straggling team at the back, because that's just not a Daniel Ricciardo thing to do, right? In a nutshell, he had aspirations to get into the Red Bull seat, but so far, he should be dreaming about not being dropped from RB, because Liam Lawson is eyeing him up and down. In the minimal races Liam Lawson spent at the car last year, he was fragging out, getting more points than Yuki Tsunoda. Agreed, Yuki Tsunoda was on the sidelines most of those races. But Liam Lawson, first time stepping in the car, getting points on an AlphaTauri? What? So that's unheard of. The AlphaTauri last year, mid-season, start of the season, was an absolute shitbox. And for those saying this might just be a blip in performance, what, is the last 7 years been a blip for you? And this isn't even the second time in his career where he's being absolutely dominated by a driver who's way more inexperienced than you, way younger than you, and has very, very minimal wins, if zero. I mean, Max Verstappen, well, he ended his Red Bull career. Lando Norris, he ended his McLaren and his entire racing career. And now we got Yuki Tsunoda, who not arguably, is genuinely the worst out of those three by a country mile. Well, if Daniel Ricciardo can't be beating Yuki Tsunoda, then I have very, very minimal faith in Daniel Ricciardo beating, say, Mazepin, Latifi, Logan Sargent. It just, well, currently will not happen. Daniel Ricciardo has been out-qualified every race. He's finished ahead of Yuki pretty much every race, except for Bahrain, where, well, it was kind of a pity pass. The team let Daniel Ricciardo pass. Yuki Tsunoda wasn't that happy about it, but I guess karma's a bitch, because look at Yuki Tsunoda now, and look at Daniel Ricciardo now. I mean, what am I meant to say? But hey, that wasn't the only time Daniel Ricciardo was finished ahead of Yuki, because in China he also finished ahead of Yuki. Now granted, they both didn't finish the race, but Daniel Ricciardo was more into the race than Yuki Tsunoda. Putting all the jokes aside, China was actually a pretty good weekend. He was up there. That safety car was looking kind of delicious, but that was until Lance Stroll decided to absolutely ram into the back of him, ruin all of his aerodynamics, all of his underside flooring, and well, his race was clearly over. But otherwise, that weekend was like a positive step forward. This week in Miami, that is genuinely the true test, whether his trajectory is going up, or whether that was just like a good performance, because Daniel Ricciardo in China, well, they merge well kind of nicely, don't they? Insert the clip of overtaking Bottas, and also insert the clip of absolutely standing on that podium, taking that shoey in, and just celebrating that win like it's his, well, pretty much last win ever. Daniel Ricciardo really only has a couple options. I think the option that, well, everybody wants, including myself, because as a very, very devoted Ricciardo enjoyer, not only do I want to see him stay in Formula 1, want him to fix up, and I want him in that Red Bull seat. I want him. My predictions at the start of the season was he takes Checo Perez's seat midway through the season. I guess that clearly won't happen, will it? Flame me in the comments. I thought Daniel Ricciardo was going to cook. And maybe I've cursed him, so maybe it's my fault? The ideal scenario is obviously that he stays in Formula 1, frags out, beats Yuki Tsunoda, and then moves up into the Red Bull seat. Verstappen retires, and he wins a championship, because the Red Bull, well, they're just not slowing down, are they? Well, that is the ideal situation of any driver. Get into the Red Bull seat, Verstappen slips in the shower, and, well, he's no longer able to drive Formula 1, and then they can win the championship. But that's not going to happen now, is it? I mean, if Daniel Ricciardo doesn't fix up at the end of the season, I think it's better off he retires on his own than gets dropped for the second time, because then he genuinely is going to be more of a laughingstock than Alpine, or the Sauber pit stop crew, because 50 seconds is an average pit stop these days, so let's go. IndyCar is always an option. We've seen many Formula 1 drivers go over to IndyCar, Romain Grosjean, of course, and, well, others. Or even NASCAR. We know Daniel Ricciardo is a big fan of the Americas, and who isn't, because America does it bigger, better than pretty much anyone else. It's a shame that we haven't heard the American anthem on the podium for a while, because the only one we get to hear is... My bad, sorry, had to do it again, sorry, kind of slipped, my finger slipped, sorry, my bad. Well, other than that, Daniel Ricciardo has single-handedly torn his whole racing career apart. He stacked up the Lego bricks to be, well, in contention for world championships and everything and all the glory, but he's slowly taken it apart. Slowly. Now, I'm not a hater, I'm kind of a believer, and I believe that Daniel Ricciardo will get back to his peak form. And if he doesn't, recommend him to retire himself, because you don't want to be dropped for the second time. With all of that said, I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know if you guys think Daniel Ricciardo is going to fix up and won't retire or get booted. the second time in his career. And watch it down there in the comments, like and subscribe, because that will make me happy and I can continue making banging content. As I keep saying, at the end of the year, there will be some crazy shit going on and you don't want to miss it. It's actually going to be, like, genuinely going to be crazy. Like, I'm not trolling. No troll. Anyway, have a safe and fantastic rest of your day. Don't go running in the road and don't get hit by a car. Don't die. Have a safe day. Peace.